This is Nick with logosbynick.com, and in this tutorial I'll be demonstrating how you can create these simple line style logos using Adobe Illustrator. But before we get started, if you'd like to learn more about logo design, be sure to check out my Logo Design Academy. It's an 18-part video series where I outline my entire creative process for designing logos from start to finish. I'll have a link in the description of the video if you want to check that out. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new document. I'll come over here to where it says File, click on New, and the size I'm going to use is 1280 by 720, and click Create. And now we just want to set up the document so that we have all of these menus open over here. Come up here to where it says View first. Snap to point, let me disable that. From the View menu, you want to make sure you have everything disabled. So if you have something like Smart Guides or Snap to Pixel or whatever, just go ahead and disable that. And then come over here to where it says Window. And under Window, we're going to want Control, Align, Color, and Pathfinder. And that's these menus over here. So to get us started with the design, the first thing we're going to do is create this overall circle that the design is encased within. So let me grab the, if you come over here, you should notice there's a rectangle tool. If you click and hold on that right there, you get this little flyout menu. I'm going to choose the ellipse tool right there. I'm going to click and drag on the canvas to create an ellipse, and I'm going to hold Shift and Alt to make sure it's perfectly round like that. And then I just want to center this up on the page. So let's come over here to the Align menu where it says Align To. I'm going to choose Align to Artboard and just make sure it's centered up on the page like that. And what I want to do now is I'm going to get rid of the fill color and I want to increase the size of the stroke. So let me come over here where there's the fill color right here. Just click this little red X to remove the fill color. It doesn't look like anything happened there, but it was filled with the color white. So we just wanted to remove the white from the center there. And now I want to change the size of the stroke to, let's say 3 pixels. So hit 3 and hit enter. And that right there is looking pretty good. So let me grab the select tool, click off of that to deselect everything. What I'm going to do now is create these lines of water that you see over here. So to do that, let's grab the pen tool right here. Bring the pen towards, like, I'd say the top of the lower third of the circle, right about there. Click to create a point, hold Shift, bring the line straight across like that. Click again, and then press Enter to finalize it like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the Select tool, and you might need to zoom in on this to do this. I'm going to hold Alt and roll up the mouse wheel to zoom in on this. I want to click and drag this line and then hold Shift and Alt so that it creates a copy coming straight down like that. And once you do that, just go ahead and press Control D to create copies of it. And I'm going to press Control D a few times until we end up with enough lines. That right there is looking pretty good. Let me click and drag a selection going through all of these and just use my arrow keys to move these down a little bit. You may have to move yours up or down based on where they're located. I'm just looking at this bottom space right here. I want this bottom space to be consistent with the rest of these spaces. So I think right about there looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's trim off the edges of these lines here. So to do that, click and drag over everything so we have everything selected. And we are going to look for the Shape Builder tool, which is right here. Or you could press Shift and M on the keyboard. And what I want to do is I want to hold Alt on the keyboard so that it subtracts. And then just click and drag a line going through those lines right there to remove them. And do the same thing over here. Alt and click just like that. Zoom in a little more. Again, to zoom in, holding Alt and rolling up the mouse wheel. And I just want to delete these points over here on the sides like this. So just hold Alt and click and drag to delete those. Just like that, and delete that little piece as well. Okay, so that right there is what we're looking for. If you notice here, the edges of these lines are squared, like a box. I want them to be rounded. So to do that, to change that, let's go back to the Select tool. While we have everything still selected, let's just click on this stroke panel menu right here to get this flyout menu. I want to change the cap to round cap, and I want to change the corner to round corner. And then we can click out of that. And now we have that right there. So that right there is a good start. The next thing I'm going to create is the mountains right here. It's a little mountain with some snow on top of it. To do that, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm going to come back up here to the Ellipse tool, click and hold. We are looking for the Rectangle tool. And I'll just come over here to the side like this. To move the page, I'm just pressing down the mouse. I'm just pressing down spacebar and clicking and dragging. Click and drag like this. Hold Shift and Alt to make it a perfectly symmetrical square like that. Bring your cursor to the outside of it. The outside corner where you get this rotation handle. You notice my cursor is turning into a rotation cursor. Just click and drag, then hold Shift to lock it onto the axis like that. Let me take this and move this down like this. This top of the square right here is going to represent the top of the mountain. I'm going to get rid of this bottom part in just a minute. But first I want to create some snow. So let me create a copy of this. I'm going to click and drag, then hold Shift and Alt and bring this copy up here. And then I want to click and drag, hold Shift and Alt and bring this copy over here. And select both of those and unify them together by coming over to the Pathfinder menu and clicking on where it says Unite. That's going to unite those together like that. Now what we want to do next is we want to come over here to the Transform tab, which is right next to the Align tab. If you don't have a Transform tab, just go to Window and look for Transform. This is rather important for this tutorial. We're just going to check this setting down here where it says Scale, Strokes, and Effects. We just want to check to make sure that that's disabled. We want to make sure that is disabled for the duration of this tutorial. And once you've verified that, you can go ahead and go back to the Align tool. So let me move this over here. Let me move the snow towards the top of the mountain. I want to scale this down. I'm going to hold Shift so it locks the proportions like that. Position this towards the top right there. And as you can see, this is already starting to take shape. It's starting to look like the snow on top of the mountain like you see here. Okay, so let me make sure this is aligned on the vertical axis. So let me select both of those. And I'll come up here to where it says Horizontal Align Center. Okay, it looks like it's already aligned, so that's good to go. Now we need the Shape Builder tool again. So come over here, we're looking for the Shape Builder tool. Again, we're going to hold Alt, and you just click and drag a line through there to get rid of that part. And now we're going to delete this bottom half. So to do that, we're going to look for the Scissors tool. It's located in the menu where the Eraser tool is. So click and hold on the Eraser tool and look for the Scissor tool. And with the Scissor tool, let me zoom in a little bit. I want to click on these little anchor points right here. Just click on that anchor point, and then click on this anchor point over here. And now you can grab the Select tool, and you should be able to take this little piece and just press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. Okay, so now I will take the mountain with the snow, and I will group it together by going to Object, Group, and I will place this over here in the center of the emblem like this. And I just want to go ahead and press Center to make sure that's centered. And you may have to resize this to fit the design here. I'm going to make mine maybe a little bigger. Actually, no, I think that size right there looks pretty good. So I just want to make sure that this is sitting on top of this right here and it's not sticking out. Okay, looking good. Now what we're going to do is create the sun over here in the background with the sun rays coming from behind it. So to do that, let's come back over here. We're going to come back over here to our Shapes tool. We're looking for the ellipse. I'm actually going to create the ellipse over the mountain right here. Just hold Shift and Alt, just so I can get a good sense of what the size should be. Grab the Select tool. I'm going to place that right about there. I think that's a pretty good size for the sun relative to the rest of the design right here. So let me move this. Let me move this over here. Now we need to create the sun rays going around the sun. So to do that, let's zoom in on this a little bit. I'm going to grab the Pen tool again, and I'm going to come out here and click to create a point. Hold Shift, bring this point straight down like that, and then press Enter to finalize it like that. And by default, it should be creating lines that are, if you go to the Select tool, it should be creating lines that are 3 pixels based on your input from when we originally created this circle. But if not, just go ahead and change that so it's 3 pixels. Okay, so now I want to click and drag over both of those to select them both with the Select tool and make sure they are aligned horizontally like that. And now what I want to do is for this part, we're going to take this line and duplicate it going around this circle. For this method that we're going to use, we're going to have to enable Smart Guides. So come over here to where it says View, and we're looking for Smart Guides. Go ahead and enable that. We're going to enable that temporarily. Click on the line right there to select it. And then click on the Rotate tool over here. And once you click on the Rotate tool, bring your cursor towards the center of the circle. And once you reach the center of the circle, you will notice a little line of pink text populates on your screen saying Center. It may be difficult to see on my screen, but if you do it on yours, you should be able to see it. Once you get that center indication, just hold Alt and then click right there, and you should get this little Rotate menu that pops up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use 30 degrees. Okay, I already have 30 set because I was using it previously. You probably will have to type that in manually, so go ahead and just type in 30. And over here where it says Copy, just go ahead and press that. Copy, and there you go. It created a copy like that. And now we just want to duplicate that. So press Control D on the keyboard and then press Control D again to keep creating copies of it until it goes all around the circle like that. Okay, and that right there is what we're looking for. All right, now let's grab the Select tool. I want to click and drag over this line and then hold Shift and click and drag over this line. And then while holding Shift the whole time, just go and select all of these little lines right here. We want to select all of them. And once we have them all selected, let's group them together by going to Object, Group. and let's rotate them around. So let's bring the cursor to the outside of the corner here until we get the rotation handle, and just rotate that around and hold Shift on the keyboard until you get this right here. Now the difference is, if you notice right here in the center, there's no line. Previously, there was a line right there. We want this rotated around like this so there's no line in the center. We're shifting the position of these lines right here because we're going to create these smaller lines in between them. So to do that, let's click off of that to deselect everything. I'm going to zoom in over this top area right here. I'm going to go back to the pen tool. I want to click right about here to create another line. Hold Shift, bring this line down like that, and press Enter. Do the same thing, create another tiny little line. Maybe this one's even smaller right here. There we go. And now, let me select both of these. I'm going to use my arrows to move them down a little bit. And I want to group these two lines together. We'll go to Object, Group, and we're going to do the same thing that we did previously to repeat these lines around the circle. So with them selected like that, come back over here to the Rotate tool. Hover your cursor over the center of the circle until you get the pink text that says center, and then hold Alt and click. And again, we're doing 30 degrees, so press copy, and there we go. Now Control D. Keep pressing Control D until it's all the way around the circle like that, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for right there. Now let me grab this Select tool. Let's click and drag over all of this. Let's ungroup everything by going to Object, Ungroup. And then let's group it all together as one unified group. So we'll come over here and go to Object, Group. Okay, now let me move over a little bit and move the page over. I want to bring this sun right over the mountain right here. Let's get rid of Smart Guides. We don't need that anymore. We'll come up here to where it says View, Smart Guides. Go ahead and disable that. That will just get in our way moving forward. And I may have to adjust the size of this. I just want to center this up like that. And I may have to scale this down a little bit. It looks a little too big. And I'm using my arrow keys to change the position. Okay, that right there I'd say is pretty good. Let's ungroup this now. We'll go to Object, Ungroup, click off of it to deselect everything. And now I want to just get rid of some of these lines in here, like this line right here. Just select it and press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. Make sure not to accidentally select the other lines as well. Make sure you're just selecting these individual lines right here. We're getting rid of these one by one, slowly but surely. One more to go. And there we go. Okay, so now we just need to get rid of this little line going through the mountain right here. So to do that, let's select the sun, the circle anyway, hold Shift, select the mountain, and now let's go to our Shape Builder tool, which is over here, or again, Shift M on the keyboard, hold Alt and click and drag a line through here to get rid of that, and that's looking good. Go back to the Select tool, and there we go. Okay, so let's come back over here. If you notice, I have some trees over here on the left and right side of the mountains and the sun. I'm going to go ahead and create some trees now. So let's create some trees. To do that, come back up here to the shapes. We're looking for the Rectangle tool now. And I'm going to create the first tree going over here on the right-hand side. So let me zoom in on that. I'm going to click and drag to create a rectangle like this. Hold Shift and Alt while doing so to lock the proportions. And we'll go to the Select tool. Let me rotate this around. Again, holding Shift so we lock it onto a 315 degree rotation like that. And let me grab this. Let me grab the scissors again. With this selected, grab the scissor tool, and then just click on each of these anchor points right here to cut the path at those 2 points. And now we can get rid of that part right there. We don't need that anymore. So this right here is going to represent one of the branches of the trees. As you see right here, we're going to create a series of these. And to do that, let me just place this over here. This is where the trees are going to be. I just want to make sure that the size is relative to the rest of the design. Okay, that right there is pretty good. So I'm going to click and drag on this and then hold Shift and Alt to create a copy of it that goes straight down like that. And once I've done that, Control D to create copies. So I'm going to make about 5 branches right there. And now we can click off of that to deselect everything. We're going to want to enable Snap to Point now. So come over here where it says View. We'll go to Snap to Point. We're going to want to be able to snap the cursor onto different anchor points. And we'll grab the pen tool. Snap the cursor to this point up here. And then hold Shift and bring the line straight down like this. This is going to represent the trunk of the tree, and press Enter like that. Now let's grab the select tool, click and drag over the entire tree and group it together. Object, group. And now I want to take the base of the tree right here, this anchor point, and snap it onto the corner of this right here. So I'm going to hold Control and grab this anchor point right here and just bring it over here until it snaps in there like that. And there we go. Okay, so now at this point you may have to adjust the size of your tree accordingly because we're going to put another tree right here and it needs to fit. So I'm going to click and drag this tree and then hold Shift and Alt and then just bring it over here like this. And now I'm just going to ungroup this. We'll go to Object, Ungroup, click off of it to deselect, and I'm going to delete these top branches over here so that we're only left with, I'd say, 2 branches like that. And now we could take this line right here, select that, grab the direct selection tool, and click on just this line right here. Click on that once, or just that anchor point. And once you've selected it, just bring it down, hold Shift so it brings it straight down like that, right down there to the top of that tree. And now we can grab the select tool, click and drag over the entire tree, and go to Object, Group. Okay, so now we're just going to create copies of these trees and put them over here. So I'm going to take the bigger tree. These strokes can be difficult to select sometimes. Sometimes you'll have to just click and drag a box over it like that. And then I'll just click and drag. I'll hold Shift and Alt. I'll bring this over here like this. And I'll do the same thing with this tree. I'll click and drag, hold Shift and Alt to bring it over here. I'm going to bring it out here, and then I'm going to hold Control and grab this node right here to snap that into this anchor point over here. Okay, now once we've done that, we're going to have to cut off the bits of the circle that are intersecting with the trees right there. If you notice here, I have a little bit of padding around those trees. So let's go ahead and do that. To do that, let's select the circle, the emblem, and I want to grab the pen tool right here. And I want to click to add a couple of points. Wherever it is that I want to cut this circle off is where I want to add a point. Now, if you notice, if I hover the cursor over the line, the cursor will change from an asterisk to a plus symbol. And once you see that plus symbol, that's how you know you can add an anchor point in there. So with that plus symbol enabled, go ahead and click the line to add an anchor point in there. And I'll come over here and do the same thing. I'll add an anchor point right here. And those are the 2 points where I want to cut this path. So let's come back over to the scissor tool. Click on those 2 points you just created, cut the path there, and then cut the path there. Grab the select tool. And now you should be able to take this line and just press delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. Now let me zoom out a little bit. I'm going to hold Control and roll down the mouse wheel. Okay, so the final step would be to add some spaces between these lines of the water down here to make it look more natural looking. This right here is bothering me. I'm just going to fix this real quick. It's not quite lined up. There we go. Okay, so we have that set. Now what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to create some rectangles going over these lines to delete different segments. So let me grab the squares, go to the rectangle tool. And I want to click and actually let's go to View. Let's get rid of Snap to Point. We don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to click and drag to create a rectangle going over this like that. We no longer need these strokes, so I'm going to make this red. I'm going to get rid of the stroke over here. I'm going to click on the stroke color to enable it, and then press the none, this little red slash right here to get rid of it. Back to the fill color. And I want to take the opacity of this and bring this down a little bit so I can see where it lines up relative to the line. And then I just want to make a duplicate copy. I'm actually going to make this a little longer like this. And then I'll make a duplicate copy. I'll hold Shift, and I'll click and drag and hold Shift and Alt. And I'll make this one a little smaller. And then I'll create another copy. Let me zoom in a little bit. Create another copy, Shift and Alt. This one will be like a medium length like that. So this one will be like a longer length. This one will be a shorter length, and this one will be a medium length. And now I just want to create copies of this on the rest of the line. So let me hold Alt and click and drag and bring this copy down here. I'll hold Alt, click and drag, bring this copy down here. I will make a copy of this one. Oops. Make a copy of this one, bring this down here. Maybe another copy over here. Make a copy of this one. And the idea is to just do this sporadically and randomly. We don't want this to look like a pattern. We don't want this to be symmetrical. It needs to look natural, kind of like flowing water. Let me take this over here, bring this down there. And I'll take this one and bring this over here. Do the same thing. Okay, so once you've gone through and created all of your little rectangles right there, just go ahead and click and drag over everything so we have everything selected. And let's zoom in over this particular area right here. And I want to delete those sections. So let's come over here to the Shape Builder tool and hold Alt and just click and drag a line going through those sections to delete them out of there like that. Okay, and as you can see, we are pretty much finished. If you come back up to the Select tool and click off it to deselect everything. Now, the thing about this design is that it's made entirely of strokes. So if you want to change the color of it, click and drag over it, and then you can change the stroke color over here. Like you can choose your colors like that. Okay. Now, if you want to convert this into a path so it's no longer a stroke, okay, the benefit, first of all, before I show you how to do that, the benefit of having this as strokes is you can scale this down like this, and you can make this thicker like that, okay? This probably doesn't look so good with the lighter color. Let me make that a little darker. Okay, that looks good. Or you can make the lines thinner by scaling it up like that. And if you zoom out, you can see how it looks with the lines thinner. Okay, let me select over. You might want to click and drag over all of it to select everything and then go to Object, Group, just to group it all together. But let me scale this down to a size that I'm happy with. Let's say you don't want this to be strokes anymore. What you can do is you can go to Object, and we are looking for Expand. Go ahead and leave the defaults and click OK. And now this is no longer a stroke. These are now paths. If you grab the Nodes tool or the Direct Selection tool, you can see that. Okay, so I think that should do it for this tutorial. That's how you can go about creating those line style logos using Adobe Illustrator. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.